Just to look at this thing, the British L119, sleek, compact, and, according to many Ukrainians, the main rival to the Soviet D-30. On paper, it's a modest little howitzer. In reality, it's become one of the most argued about guns in the entire war. But let's be honest, it's easy to admire Western tech when it's parked clean on a test range. Try using it in a war where the barrel never cools down, and suddenly all that NATO precision starts sweating. When Ukrainian gunners got their L119, they also got some quick training abroad. 6 days in Germany, because apparently that's all it takes to learn how to run an artillery piece in the most intense war of the 21st century. The instructors, mostly Americans, were confident, until someone asked how the gun behaves after firing 200 shells a day. The answer? Pour some water on it. Half an hour later, the same trainer admitted they'd never fired that much in their lives. Welcome to Ukraine, where the manual ends and the real test begins. British and American forces normally use the L118 and L119 to support airborne or light infantry units. The difference between them is simple: ammo. The L118 fires 105mm rounds only the British have in stock, while the L119 is NATO compatible. That's why Ukraine got it, because when half the world wants you to win, you'd better have a gun that can use everyone's shells. And in this war, one rule always applies: the more artillery you've got, the safer your infantry feels. For the crews behind those guns, that's not a slogan. It's a daily weight. Every shell that lands on target means someone else gets to live another hour. So yeah, handing Ukraine the L19S was a smart call. And if you think so too, well, hit that button, because apparently algorithms care about artillery support these days. Ammo, though, is just half the battle. The real question is, can the gun survive the punishment Ukraine puts it through? The Americans who trained the crews weren't sure, but the front line figured it out fast. Ukrainian gunners ended up firing 50 to 100 rounds a day, sometimes over 200. One crew even set a record during the Wagner breakthrough, blasting over 200 shells in a single day to hold their line. Officially, the L118's fire rate is 6 rounds per minute for 2 minutes, then 3 per minute for sustained fire. In real combat, that's more like as long as it doesn't melt. During the Falklands War, British troops fired 400 shells per day from this same design, so it's safe to say the L119 can take a beating. When compared to Soviet 122mm systems like the D-30 or the self-propelled Vozdika, the L119 looks modest, but its secret weapon isn't the size of the shell, it's the barrel. The thing is built for accuracy, and that's exactly what counts when every round matters. The D-30 can spit fire all day, but after decades of service, its barrels are worn and tired. The kind that turns precision into approximation. That's where the L119 shines. The tighter barrel makes it far more accurate, especially against fortified positions. And when you've got limited shells, accuracy isn't just a nice feature, it's survival. Now, before anyone starts flexing about explosive weight, yes, the 105mm round carries less punch than a 122mm shell with up to 4 kilograms of explosives, but one precise hit beats a dozen misses any day. Soviet guns might throw more metal, but that doesn't make them smarter. Another advantage: the L119's low silhouette. Smaller means harder to spot, and that's a big deal when Russian drones are hovering 24/7. The gun can be deployed and packed up fast, the kind of grab your stuff and vanish speed that keeps you alive when the sky's full of buzzing death. And here's something unexpected: it's quiet. For a howitzer, that's rare. Compared to the Soviet gear that rattles your skull and rings your ears for hours, the L119 barely whispers. Even Russian intercepts have picked up their confusion. It's coming from somewhere, but we have no idea where. When your enemy can't locate you, that's the kind of silence you want. At night, the gun gets even stealthier. Unlike the D-30, which lights up like a fireworks show with every shot, the L119 barely flashes. Ukrainian crews were shocked. You can barely see the muzzle blast even in total darkness. It doesn't give away your position, and that's worth more than any fancy camouflage net. Then there's the weight, or rather, the lack of it. The L119 weighs around 1,900 kilos, about 4,200 pounds, nearly a ton lighter than the D-30. That means fewer logistics headaches and a lot more flexibility. Western armies usually tow it with trucks or light tactical vehicles, but it's light enough to move by hand. 2 soldiers can spin it around if they have to. You can even sling it under a UH-60 or haul 2 of them at once with a CH-47. If the helicopter can't land, just airdrop it. Ukraine's not doing that yet, but the mobility pays off, especially when it's mounted to a Humvee. Fast, small, efficient, everything Soviet guns aren't. In this war, sitting still is dangerous. That mobility matters when Russian FPVs and cab bombs are constantly hunting artillery positions. When a Humvee pulls up and someone yells "cab incoming," your survival rate drops to pure luck. FPV drones prioritize artillery and vehicles, so staying mobile isn't a tactic, it's a necessity. Distance from the front used to matter. Not anymore. FPVs reach farther every month, hitting D-30s and L119s alike. Whether you're 12 or 15 kilometers away, you're still a target. So it's better to stay sharp and mobile than sit back and pretend you're safe. Maintenance-wise, the L119 is as low drama as artillery gets, and if something serious happens, it goes back to the company for repairs. That reliability is part of why Ukrainian crews actually enjoy using it. It just works. The gun first showed up in Ukraine in 2022 and has seen both defensive and offensive use since then. It's most effective against infantry and stationary targets, buildings, equipment, or clusters of troops. A shell takes roughly 30 seconds to travel 10 kilometers, which makes hitting moving targets tricky. But with help from drone operators feeding live coordinates, Ukrainian gunners have managed to score hits on ATVs, motorcycles, even tanks. Not bad for a towed gun designed decades ago. Since the start of the full-scale invasion, Ukraine's allies have delivered around 50 L119 howitzers to the front. That's not a massive number compared to Soviet stockpiles, but each one has pulled far more than its weight. They were deployed almost immediately, often attached to airborne and assault brigades where mobility is everything. These aren't the kind of units that wait around. They move, strike, and vanish. The L119 fit perfectly into that rhythm. Of course, every gun has its own personality. Some came straight from long-term storage, others had already seen decades of service in NATO armies. A few even arrived with little quirks, tired recoil systems, worn sights, barrels that had already fired thousands of rounds in training. And the Ukrainians quickly learned that every shot comes with a trade-off. The more the gun fires, the faster that precision slips away. Heat and stress eat the steel, and accuracy slowly fades. To keep the fleet alive, Ukraine teamed up with the gun's original creator, BAE Systems. The British defense giant opened a local branch specifically to handle the L119's maintenance, spare parts, and even to begin producing components inside Ukraine itself. That's a quiet but strategic win. It means the country can repair and potentially rebuild its artillery without waiting for a shipment from across the continent. In wartime, self-reliance isn't a luxury. It's survival. And this cooperation with BAE sends a clear message. Towed artillery still has a future. That partnership isn't just about fixing guns. It's about building a long-term capability, one that might eventually extend to upgrading or even assembling new L19s locally. The idea is simple. The closer the production line is to the front, the faster you can replace what's lost. In a war of attrition, turnaround speed often matters more than innovation, and this shift hasn't gone unnoticed. Ukraine's frontline experience has forced NATO to rethink decades of assumptions. Before Russia's full-scale invasion, most Western militaries were quietly retiring their towed artillery in favor of shiny self-propelled systems. It made sense on paper. Bigger armor, more protection, faster relocation under counter-battery fire. But then the drones came, and that neat theory crumbled fast. The same armor that kept crews safe from radar-guided shells now makes them easy prey for cheap FPVs. Massive, expensive self-propelled guns turned into oversized targets with bullseyes painted on their turrets. The logic flipped almost overnight. Smaller and lighter suddenly meant smarter and safer. That's where towed guns like the L119 stepped back into the spotlight. They're compact, easy to camouflage, and store their ammo separately, meaning a drone hit won't turn the entire crew into fireworks. The gunners can dig in, cover their position with camouflage, and literally disappear into the terrain. When it's time to shoot, they roll out, fire a few rounds, and melt back into cover before counter-battery radar even registers them. And there's more. Towed systems are cheap to produce, easy to train on, and simple to fix in the field. No complicated engines, no hydraulics, no electronics that fry after one blast wave. In a long war, simplicity wins. You can build 10 L119 for the cost of a single high-end self-propelled gun. And when the enemy destroys one, you don't hold a memorial service. You just roll out the next. So, no, the L119 isn't glamorous. It doesn't look intimidating on parade, and it won't impress anyone at a defense expo. But it's tough, dependable, and brutally effective when it counts. It's the kind of artillery that keeps soldiers alive not because it's flashy, but because it works. Every single day. So if you've made it this far, go ahead and drop a like. Not for the algorithm, but for the crews who'll spend tonight under camouflage netting, cleaning barrels, tightening bolts, and getting ready to fire again before sunrise. And that leaves the final question. What matters most in artillery? Sheer firepower, mobility, or the kind of rugged simplicity that keeps you fighting when everything else breaks? Let us know what you think in the comments. Because in this war, even the quietest gun still speaks loud and clear.